Good morning. How you doing? Good. All right. So, I actually never been a type of person who reads that much books, to be honest. When I was young, it was mostly fantasy books occasionally. When this had this book sale once a year, about 1 or 2 books, and I read those. But I didn't consume that much books. That kind of changed for me. In 2008, I bought a Kindle, or actually a Kindle app, for my Android device. And that changed a little bit how I consumed information and consumed books. And this basically is for me kind of how I relate to this type of product, how I consume information. This device is, I consider at least, highly competitive. It has 83% of the market share in the US. It's quite a big number. And for me personally, I counted that I, for the last 10 years, spent approximately 35,000 Swedish SEK on in-app purchases, basically consuming books. And that for me was kind of mind-boggling, kind of, how is this possible? How could I achieve that one? So the essence is that highly competitive products, great products, don't only help us on the bottom line, it actually changes people's behaviors. And through time, they can actually make a rather big shift. So how do we create those kind of products? And here is a diagram of kind of 3 wins, or kind of how to win in a marketplace, 3 strategies to win in a marketplace. The first one is operational excellence, second product leadership, and third customer centricity. And in the triangle, you can basically place any of your competitors, yourself, and your products, and see how do we relate to each other. So companies with operational excellence focus, they usually are more about improving how we create a product than the actual product itself. We're talking about efficiency, we're talking about margins, improving margins, and reducing price. Product leadership companies and products are striving to not to be the best, but the most differentiated. The highest point of that is to actually have a product or a service that is the only one who does what it does. Okay? And customer centricity, you improve the whole experience of consuming the product or using the product. And here we're trying to maximize share of wallet. We try to maximize repeatable purchases through time and get money in that way. So today I will mostly focus on what happens if you actually move towards product leadership, if you want this highly differentiated product. How does that look? But I will cover a little bit from the other ones as well in the end. So to start off, we need to look at a concept as a category. So basically what we're talking about is differentiation needs to be placed in a context. And the context is, who do you compete against? A category sets the rules of the game. It basically, for example, smartphone category. It defines what do we expect from a smartphone, what is the price of a normal smartphone. So this is the rules of the game, basically. And the way to figure out your own product and your service, what category are you in, is to answer the question, if I don't know the name of your product and I will Google it, what would I write? So that's a trick you can use to actually figure out. This sets the direction of price, as I told you. So depending on how you define the category, and this is a choice, you will also define a price, relative price for your own product. Through time, a category matures. So if we start here, somebody creates a product or a service, and they are the first one. They actually build a new category. They own the category. They define it. A typical, if you remember, jacuzzi. It's a brand that defined a category. So when you're first to define a category, you have often the privileges of being connected with your brand name directly to the category, and you own the category. But eventually, more competitors will show up. They would try to differentiate, they would try to pull the category a little bit apart, but it's the same thing still. And as time progresses, more and more competitors show up. And here at the end, before we reach this hyper competition part, we see a herding behavior. We basically see that companies start behaving in pretty much the same way. So, for example, one company launches a benefit or a feature. The other ones, just not to miss out, they're going to rush to it and try to replicate it, build it, or create something similar. That creates first a small leap, but then the category stabilizes and returns pretty much back to zero. The problem with that is that now the category is again stable, all competitors are pretty much the same, but the cost of competing in the category has increased. And this cycle repeats itself over and over again. So here we have this kind of mimicking behavior, where competitors, just to not miss out, are starting to mimic each other's features, each other's benefits. If we look at 2007, this was the smartphone category. And of course, they do have some differentiation. They look a little bit different. But as a category, they're pretty much similar, right? And then this guy come along. That from just a visual comparison set, you can already see that, okay, there's something different here to differentiate. And this is kind of the point that if you are in a mature category, you need to differentiate to break the cycle. You can do it in the middle as well, but the sense of urgency should be greater the more to the right you are in the maturity axle. So if we talk about this type of product, the differentiating type of product, we need to introduce a concept or borrow a concept from marketing, basically POP and POD. POP is point of parity. How do you relate to others in your category? Basically, what are your similarities? And POD is point of difference. What are your difference points? How do you stand out? You need both for a product or a service to actually be competitive. I'm going to start with the first one. So let's imagine that we create a new product and we put it straight into the category. Right in. We don't have any difference points, but we are similar to the other ones. The problem with this is we are like into the right? We are into mature, we're just mimicking. This often leads us to what is called a drag race. Basically, we're competing on the same feature. Company launches X, we launch an X. They launch Y, we launch Y. And in the end of the game, it just drives the prices down. This is actually quite good for customers, but for a company, this is quite bad place to be at. There is a moment where this actually is a good thing to do. And this is when a company has a differentiator, a competitor has a differentiator offering, and you want to prevent them from gaining market share, then you can launch one of these to actually kind of stop their forward motion. It's also called Me Too products. This is what I usually see when I work with customers. Well, oh, they created this, let's do that as well. No differentiation, a lot of similarities. The second example is this. We have a category and we create a new product that is completely differentiated. This is usually the startup case when I work with those kind of new ideas or new business. But our product is unique. You can't place it in a box. It's completely different than anything else. For me, that's a bad thing. Because if customers can't relate to your product, if they don't understand what your product is, they won't buy it. They might say, well, yeah, it's completely new, but I don't understand what's supposed to do with it. Usually they don't give you that feedback even. They just don't buy. And you wonder what's happening. So here is a dangerous place to be in. And this is kind of the advice to kind of help consumers figure out who do you look like? What's the point of parity? So they understand the direction of price as well. This is the wanted position. We want to overlap with the category, with the point of parity things, but still have a difference towards the other competitors. this is the kind of the wanted position he want to place us. And to be clear, the category you choose, it's a choice. Often we just focus on how should we differentiate, what kind of unique benefits should our products provide. And we seldom, or rarely at least, talk about what is the category, who should we actually compete against, and slice it in a way where we position ourselves so we have a clear win or a clear differentiation. For a differentiator to be actually a differentiator, it has three things, for me at least. It needs to be meaningful. It needs to be meaningful from a consumer point of view. So if we launch a new phone that is red, it's probably not so meaningful for consumers. It needs to be something that helps them put meaning into it as well. Most of all, or kind of at the high point, we're looking for the onlyness. We want to be the only ones who do what we do. Because when we sell the product or we talk about the product, we shouldn't be talking so much about the similarities, but oh, we have this feature as well. We should be talking about the differences, but we solve this problem in a completely new way. Here is our take on it. So from a marketing perspective, we try to talk more about the differentiations, and therefore the onlyness is quite a good way to look at it. And the second or the third is to have a high utility value. It should actually solve some problems or needs from a consumer point of view. So, three ways of differentiating a product. The first one, break the pattern. Expand the customer set and innovate outside the core. And I'm going to go through those three ways that I at least work with differentiation. So breaking the pattern is to try to figure out what people take for granted and what people actually value, and try to change that up, flip that around in some way. The way to do it, or at least a tool that I use, looks like this. I place the category in the middle. This is who I want to compete against with my product. In the outer ring, I have current expectations, and this is basically what do people expect of this category today, of all the products out there. I'm looking here for what I call shared knowledge. I'm not looking for individuals' opinions. I'm looking for, if I ask people around and start connecting the dots, what are people's hidden assumptions, hidden knowledge about this category? And in the end, the difference points. Let's take this as an example, the Tesla, and see how it works out, just a walkthrough. So the category could be premium sedan. In Tesla's case, it's a little bit different because they actually merged at least two categories from my point of view and created a new one. But it could be premium sedan, it could be premium sports sedan that they compete against, it could be electric vehicles. Depending on which category they take, the expectation set will be completely different. If they take electric vehicles, you basically compare them to a Prius, right? But if you take premium sedan, that's Mercedes, that's BMW, Volvo, I guess, those kind of. So choosing who you compare yourself to is quite important. But here I chose the premium sedan. Let's assume that this is an expectation set from consumers. They expect that there is room for 5 people in it. Otherwise, it's not a premium sedan, right? They expect some kind of luxury interior, maybe the quality of the leather, the infotainment equipment. They expect high comfort. They expect a premium priced version. They expect maybe gas or diesel engine, fast, and design. What we can do with this expectation set now is to go into each one of them and look, what expectations should we fulfill? What expectations should we extend, increase, or what expectations should we break, the breaking pattern point? If you break all of them, you're outside the bubble. So you have to actually fulfill a set. And here is the kind of the art of it. You have to understand what do people actually value in this category and what do they take for granted. That's, yeah, this is how the world always looks like. Let's take an example, fast, right? So a Tesla in ludicrous mode is 2.5 seconds, it's way beyond fast. So there's a kind of a difference point that you can talk about, that you can increase. Gas or diesel, well, they don't offer that. They have electric. Again, a difference point. And luxury interior, below par, that note maybe should be split into different categories, what kind of luxury interior, but their solution was to have a big media screen, this iPad-sized in the cockpit, basically. So this is just an example of how to work with this type of information. And here, the important part is it's shared knowledge. We need to figure out what consumers actually value. This is both for B2C and B2B. This applies as well there. Any questions? A good way of figuring out this shared data is not to talk about your product. Have anybody read Mom Test? A book called Mom Test? No? It's about basically asking customers, or the premise is that you shouldn't ask your mom if they want the product or not, because they will always love it. You should be able to talk about what customers need and want without mentioning your product at all. And this is a bit of a practice, to go out and actually just immerse yourself into people's lives and try to figure out what do they actually need. So a way to start could be, if I was investigating this, to talk about people's experience of transportation. People's experience of cars. What do they value? How do they drive? What do they use? That will build my expectation set. And I will try to connect the patterns. The second one is expand the customer set. This is about, most often a category is already defined. It's very rarely that we see that you have the opportunity to create a whole new category with your product, and if you do, it's often quite costly. Often you're already competing in a category that is defined. So this is about extending that. This is about differentiating by extending who are your customers, really. How many have used Blue Ocean strategy or heard about it? This is borrowed from that and adapted a little bit. So what we'll look at here is we have basically three types of customers. But the first one is the current market. This is the customers that the current market is serving, your competitors or you. That's might be a sizable chunk of it. The next type of customers are the ones who are using your product or competitive product but are not happy with it. They're just waiting to switch. As soon as it comes a better offering for them that fulfills their goals or needs better, they will jump. And the third one is the type of customers who have seen the offering on the market but refusing them. They say, well, nope, it's not for me, for whatever reason that is. By extending your offering to capture more of this, you actually extend your market, your total market, quite a lot. I'll give an example. This is a product that I love. I just recently actually bought it, but Sonos is one of the things that I can have. It solves everything for me, around the music at least. And let's look at them from an early beginning. Let's try to guess how it looks like. So if we look at the multi-room music market, from my point of view, when I looked at it before, it was about enthusiasts. It was about people who are building their house and has the opportunity to spend some portion of money to install multi-room speakers, often through cables and quite expensive equipment to control them. I call them the enthusiasts. Those people, they really appreciate this and have money to actually solve those problems. But people who switch them, who are they? Who are they who are looking for another type of solution? For me, it's people that are hacking the problem. They're not satisfied. Maybe they don't have a house they can retrofit in, or maybe they don't have this type of money to do it. I place myself kind of this category. Do you remember this? Can you see it? It's the Airport Express or Extreme. How many here remember that product? Yeah. For me, this part here, the aux out portion of it, was the key. Basically, I plug this in to my socket and I have multi-room experience. I could actually listen to music. So I bought 2 of those for my 2-bedroom apartment, and I have multi-room experience. So this was for me a cheaper way of accomplishing basically the same thing. No, I didn't have any controls. I was forced to have a software that kind of switches the sound or try to sync the sound, and it usually didn't work. But it was the hacking of it. If you look closely to an industry, there are people that are hacking your products today, or hacking your competitors' products to solve a need that the product is not currently solving. If you can identify it, you have an opportunity to capture more of the market. And the last one in this example is maybe people that think this is too cumbersome. My dad, he is one of those. He really likes this type of solutions, but this is too cumbersome. He will never install it. So imagine that we are developing the Sonos product and we have this insight. Then we can actually use this to say about, okay, so how can we create a product that actually helps people to ease the way to listen to music in multi-room? Maybe this, if we recognize that this is something that people use today to actually hack the problem, maybe this is the form factor or something similar that we're looking for. And if you have used the Sonos product, you can realize, okay, it's on Wi-Fi, it's an easy control, it automatically syncs with the other devices, it's very easy to use, and now we are extending to here. So for every product you can look at, or every category you can look at, who are not using your product today, and why? And try to figure that out. Any questions? The last one is innovate outside the core. And this is about, when we focus on differentiation, we focus on innovation, we focus on the product or the service itself. We are kind of, let's increase this, let's make this better, but we don't look at the whole holistic picture of it. Going back to this picture here, so if you start looking at each of the strategies to win, the free strategies to win, you have different things that you could actually be creative in or innovate around. In operational excellence, it's about improving your structure. It's both how you structure your firm, but also the structure of intellectual capital in your firm. You can improve your business model or change that. We quite often see this happening in big companies that try to sell the same product but change the business model of it and charge for something else, maybe as a recurrent or a service. The network. Who do you collaborate with to create the product itself? And process. Do you have any unique process of how you create the product? So by operational excellence, when you're focusing on that as a strategy to win, this is usually where you try to innovate or try to change. In product leadership, you focus, of course, on your product itself. And when by product, I mean product and service in this case. You try to improve it as much as possible. Often we try to look for some kind of a 10x or 5x improvement. That's kind of the leapfrogging of it. But also the product ecosystem. You try to bring in complementary offering that you can actually put into your product or service to increase the value of it. And the last one is customer centricity. There we focus on the experience of using your product. We talked about service, and not the service type of what you actually deliver, but the service itself of it. The channel, how do you deliver your offering? The brand, if you have any unique brand association or a branding that you can put behind it. And the experience of using it. So one way of looking at this is to take these factors and start doing some kind of a benchmark analysis. Basically going on to look at competitors. How are they covering this today? Where do they actually innovate? What's the level of differentiation in each of those? And you will see that most in the mature industry, since they're mimicking, they're all pretty much the same. The curve will look kind of the same for all competitors. There you have the opportunity to say, well, okay, what are the blind spots? What are people not innovating today? and how can we create differentiation in that? If you look at this product again, for me, the product itself, well, today is glare-free. You can read it in the sunlight, right? It has a long battery life, much longer than a standard Android tablet. It's an e-ink. That's the product differentiation. That's basically what they are selling. If you go to the website, this is what they are trying to push or promote. But if you look at the other, how they innovate outside the core, they have an extremely large author network that creates books and publishes through them. That's the way they structure the capital and structure their IP, right? There's an extensive library that they're building through time, and the way they've structured the library is their own proprietary methods. And they have a good search both on the web, in this product, and out and inside the books as well. So that's the way they're looking at from the operational excellence point of view. From a customer centricity point of view, they have this what they call WhisperNet. It's a way of when you're using your tablet, from the moment you find a book to you can read it is less than 1 minute. It's their own network that they set up. So it increases the chance that customers buy stuff. And of course, the patented one-click purchase. So you buy with one button and everything works, and through the WhisperNet it's delivered. So when you look at this all together, this becomes a highly competitive product because it's quite hard to copy. You can copy the product features. We can go out and create a new tablet that is glare-free, has e-ink, etc. But the other ones are quite hard and labor-intensive for us to copy. And this is basically the point of innovating around the product itself. One differentiation is very easy to copy. 4, 5, 6, then it becomes a competitive advantage. So when you create your product and services, we need to look kind of closely to how do we combine our unique advantages to create a product that is highly differentiated and sustainable through time. Any questions? Easy, hard? Yes, go ahead. Right, so the dominant strategy, if the dominant strategy is product leadership, that's a signal to me that, okay, we need to differentiate. Primarily, I focus on the product leadership part, but I try to move into the other two as soon as possible, just to figure out, is there a way to differentiate the product without building the product itself? Sometimes it's just enough to change the business model of it, or to improve the network or the structure or the process, how we do it, or offer new touch points through the channel. So having a broader view could help us differentiate without investing in the product itself. Any other questions? Go ahead. Yep. Yeah. So the highest aim will be to create a new category, to break away completely from the competitors. The problem with that is it's extremely expensive. It takes time, 5, 6, 10 years maybe, and it requires a lot of money to create a new category. But if we want to stay in the same category, I will say, yes, we need to differentiate, and that will be a choice that we need to do. How much should we do it? Because we know that competitors will rush to mimic as fast as possible. So how much should we actually invest in this? But to gain market share in the same category, we need to create a quite large differentiation. We need to break through, break away from the herd. Maybe. So, if we sum it up, 3 ways to differentiate. The first one we talked about, break the pattern. We talked about figuring out what category are you in, what are the expectation sets that people have, and actively go in, break, fulfill, raise, create new expectations for them. And this is usually when we look at the expectation set, you can find both positive and negative expectations. They are kind of, this is the expectation set. Removing the negatives and increasing the positive ones creates a good product by default, pretty much. The second one, we talked about expanding the customer set, looking beyond the current market where everybody competes. And think about, okay, who are the ones who are almost ready to switch, who will jump ship as fast as they have the possibility? Or who are the ones that are refusing our offerings today? Who are the ones that basically look at what we have and say, about, nah, it's not for us? And figuring out what's the pattern between them. Can we slice the cake in a different way? Can we take it horizontally instead of serving each market? And the third one, innovating outside the core, is basically thinking broader than your own product or service and trying to figure out, can we create differences by looking holistically, by looking at both the process, the structure, channel, brand, and experience as well. These are the three main methods that I usually use. There are many more that you can apply in different B2B and B2C scenarios. Questions? Yes, please go ahead. I would say the first one is kind of the easiest to start with. I usually do this with new business teams inside companies or startups, since they can basically go out and interview people and get expectations set. It doesn't require so much. You don't look at the competitors in the first one. You look at people, and people are all around us, and it's quite easy to analyze. What I try to do is to combine, to have different perspectives. So maybe I use the tool number one, figure out a couple of different points, look at this one here, and try to benchmark the competitor and see how are they on the same different points. Maybe I have missed something, maybe it's exactly the same, maybe I don't have a difference today. And lastly, maybe I jump to number two. So I try to combine, but I usually start with number one. It's the easiest one to use, and most people find it good enough to start a discussion at least. Did I answer the question? Thank you. Any more questions? How do you feel? Easy, hard? So in that case, this is what I had to say. This is a part of a course that we're designing right now. So if you're interested in more information about this topic or being notified when the course arrives, please talk to my colleague Hanna over there and sign up your name, basically, and we will contact you with more information. That's it. Thank you for coming. Have a nice day.